What's up, YouTube? Let's play some Run 8, and today we're going to be running this empty coal train out of the Stanton power plant down at Orlando on the A line. This is basically outside of Taft. We're going to be taking this train out of there, and the cool thing about it is this branch back in the day was DTC control. Now, DTC, there may be some of you that aren't familiar with it at all. DTC hasn't been around. I think CSX changed over from DTC to track warrant control in 09. Maybe 2010. It seemed like it was somewhere in there, give or take a few years. When I did it, they still use DTC blocks. Like track warrants weren't a thing. But like I said, we're down at Stanton. We got this train. We're using the Katy Ace. I saw some pictures the other day of the Katy Ace that was on some phosphate trains on the A line, and I thought, you know what? Why not? It's something different, right? It's pretty. It's a beautiful engine. I absolutely love it. And it'd be, you know, be something a little bit different that we could run. So maybe not 1,000% legit for the time period that we're running, but you know, it's good enough. So here we are. We're at Stanton. This is the power plant. Pretty cool. Pretty cool little representation of it. Got some nice substations there and cooling towers. Got the stacks, the generating part of it, and then over here would be the loop and the dump shed, that sort of thing. You know, the Stanton branch is something on Run 8 you don't see a whole lot about, right? You don't see a lot about the branches. You know, definitely Stanton is one. And back in the day, this wasn't very detailed at all. It was pretty plain Jane when it first came out. But, you know, they've been working on it and adding stuff to it, which is really cool. So, as I mentioned before, the cool thing about the Stanton block or the Stanton branch would be that it was DTC control back in the day. Spur is going to get it right here in a second. So, we don't have a way to do DTC with auto, of course, so we're just going to kind of go through the motions as far as what it would be like for you guys. So we would go on duty and we would taxi out here. So another crew brought the train in, right? They probably dumped it. They went dead. And so they called us as another, you know, another crew to come in and get. I'd assume we were called out of Sanford, but I'm not 100% sure on that. That's just what we're going to say. So we taxi down here. We get to our train. We get loaded up. And the first thing we need to do is call the dispatcher up, right? We would have to tone him up. What is the channel down here? I don't even, to be honest, I don't even know what it is. JA Dis, St. John's to Taft. Radio tone is channel 54, or radio channel is 54, tone 6. It says to Taft, so my question is, does it mean like Taft the yard or Taft the siding, or I don't know about that. So this may not be 100% legit, but we would tone him up, right? Like you go to his channel and tone him up, and he would be like, Jay, dispatcher Jacksonville, answering over. Because you got to be as monotone as you can, right? You got to be extremely monotone if you're going to be a trained dispatcher in Run 8. They're like that in real life. And we would say, yes, sir, this is the N17110. We're loaded up, ready for our blocks. It's Stanton. They may call it something else. I don't know. I'm not familiar. I never did anything down here. I don't know anything about it. But he'd say, all right, N171 standby. And he would start pulling up his DTC page on his computer, right? And then he'd come back and he could say, N171, what's your lead engine number? And we would say, yes, sir, N171's got the UP 4497. That's 4497 in the lead. And then he'd pause for a bit while he's getting his stuff entered in. And then he would come back and he'd be like, okay, N17110 with UP 4497 has an absolute north and south Stanton and orange blocks. That's 2 blocks. Yes on the flag. 0814 RMB. As a crew, you'd repeat all that back. You'd say, okay, N17110 with UP 4497 has an absolute north and south Stanton and orange blocks. That's 2 blocks. Yes on the flag. 0814 RMB. This is TXS copying. And I always gave my initials back. I don't know if they did anything with them, but I did. So basically what that means, he gives you the 2 blocks. There's 2 blocks down here, the Stanton and the orange block. There's different states of blocks. You could have an absolute block, you could have a clear block, you could have a proceed block, you could have an occupied block. For our purposes, I would think it would be an absolute. I don't like clears more for like other trains being around, and I don't see a situation where there'd be other trains around. So I would assume, and I'm not saying this is correct, this may not be, but I would assume that it would be an absolute block and he would give it to you in both directions, just in case if you need to make any kind of movements or anything like that, you know. And he would say yes on the flag. So on the DTC sheets that they gave us back in the day, and those were usually tacked, I'm trying to remember what those were added on to. They printed out, I can't remember if it may have been our bulletins, or maybe it was our tonnage graph. It was one of the two things that we printed out. Usually had a DTC sheet on the bottom of it, and it had columns that you'd fill in for like the DTC block, the occupancy, the flag. So it would have this little block on it called REL flag, and it is meant to relieve the rear flag protection. If he said yes on the flag, then you would check that block. And flag protection is a whole other discussion in itself that we're not going to get into, but basically we'd have to protect the bottom of our train if we had to stop, right? So then the other thing is the time. He'd say 0814 RMB, so that's the time that it was issued in the initials of the dispatcher. So that's basically how DTC blocks work. And so we had the ability, we got absolute blocks, so we've got both blocks are ours. If we needed to make a reverse move in them, we could, because he gave us north and south. So, I mean, we're good to go, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get our headlight on bright. Our reverser forward. We drew down some air, so let's knock that off. Put her in number 1, and we'll start easing the slack out and bust up out of here. So it's going to be slow going on this railroad. It's a 25-mile-an-hour railroad, right? Like I said, it used to not be very very detailed down here, but I think they've definitely added some stuff over time, which is really cool. Now on the coal train, the coal plant that I dumped at way back in the day, the dump loop was actually 5 mile an hour. So they've done us a solid and given us 10 more mile an hour. But it specifically said in the timetable, anywhere inside that power plant on their tracks was 5 mile an hour, and you absolutely had to observe that. They didn't mess around. All right. I think we're looking good here. So this is the, I guess this is like a rolling way station or something like that. I don't remember one at the power plant we dumped at. I don't remember anything. Maybe they did. They may have, and I just didn't know it, because our situation was a little different. We dumped on a big trestle, a big, huge trestle, and they could dump like multiple cars at one time, which we'll go into a little more here in a second. Get over this crossing here. There we go. Nice little detail though. It's definitely different. So anyway, the coal train we dumped, it was a big trestle, and the cool thing about this trestle was that they could like divide it up into sections as far as like how they dump. And so of course the cars, they're rapid discharge, they had the doors on the bottom, so, and they had the dump chutes that would come out on the side, and they make contact and somehow it would make the doors come open and they would dump. So they could energize different sections of the trestle. Let's say they wanted to dump on the first bit, so they can have the first part of the train dump there, and then they can move it down to the next one, and then the next pit, and so forth. And then what they had up under the trestle was these big pits, and they had an intake for like an underground auger. So you would dump on top of that, and they would use that auger, and then in turn they had big, huge bulldozers that they would use to kind of push the coal into that pit, and then they would take it up and put it like in a reserve stockpile or whatever they did with it. But it was a really cool operation when it worked, but it seems like it had more problems than it working correctly, right? Like it seemed like it's all the time something going on, because we were supposed to be able to dump those trains in like 90 minutes, and that never happened. I don't ever remember. There were so many factors, right? I don't think people realize like how much goes into dumping a coal train, because Like on this particular train, we could be an inbound crew, right, with a loaded coal train, and we could come down here. And I'm not 1,000% positive on this, but I would say there's probably a pretty high likelihood that at some point they would have to call the power plant up, and usually it's by a certain location, right? Probably out here on the branch somewhere. They would have to call up the power plant. They'd be like, hey, yeah, this is CSX got a coal train ready for you. And they'd be like, nope, we're not ready. You're gonna have to wait. They could absolutely do that. They could be like, we're not ready for you, and you'd have to wait until they told you they're ready. Because their dump system may be broke. They may have mechanical problem. They just may not want you, right? It could be a shift change. It could be all kind of stuff going on, and they just don't want you. In our instance, what made it doubly hard for us was at the power plant that we dumped at was dual serve, so it was served by the NS and CSX. So, and the thing that really sucked about it for us, like we had our own branch. It was a lot like Stanton, right? We would run down on this branch. It's 25 mile, like almost identical to this 25-mile-an-hour railroad down in there. We had one DTC block. It was a Silicaga block, and we'd go just about to the end of the branch to this place called Milepost 6, and that was our whole point, that we would have to wait, right? We would either have to wait for the power plant to say, yes, you know, come on down, and that's where we waited for the NS to take us, because what happened is just past Milepost 6, we'd go through these S-curves, and then we would have to cross over the NS main to get on the dump loop to dump. And then once we crossed and started dumping, we would actually foul the NS main. So what we would do at Milepost 6 is not only did we have to get the Silicaga DTC block to go down in there, but at Milepost 6, we'd have to talk to the NS dispatcher, and they did track warrants. So we would get a track warrant to come down in there on their railroad to cross over and to get on the dump loop. So everything had to line up perfectly to be able to do this stuff, or you weren't going to do it, right? So the power plant had to be able to take you first. That was the first thing you had to do. You had to call the power plant up and let them know, hey, this is in 171 ready to dump. And they can say, yeah, come on down. And then you have to call dispatch, you know, the NS up. For our trains, there were U trains. There is the U228, I think is what it was. And then you call the NS and be like, yeah, this is CSX U228 at Milepost 6, looking to go down to the power plant. And you're like, okay, get you a track warrant. And you give you a track warrant, right? So it was pretty cool how it worked out. Cool, but a pain at the same time, because you had a lot of things that could potentially mess you up to keep you from going down in there. So we had a lot of crews that would go dead waiting to go down in that power plant. So we had for our coal trains, they were an assigned job. I think they had 3 turns. I think it had 3 turns, 2 or 3, and that was covered by a board up in Birmingham called the 32nd Street board, and it was basically the remnants of the old SAL line between Atlanta and Birmingham that got ripped up in the 80s. So they protected that, and if they went dead, then they would call off our extra board to relieve the train. So that's how we got on it. So I got on that train a whole lot sitting at Milepost 6, right? Waiting to get down in the power plant. And sometimes you would go on duty at Milepost 6 and you wouldn't go anywhere for 12 hours. Like you would literally sit there for 12 hours waiting. You know, you may call the power plant up and be like, yeah, NS has got they're dumping 2 trains, right? That was something I remember. NS is going to dump 2 trains before you come down in there. You got to cross their railroad, so of course they're going to give preference to their stuff first, right? So that part sucked. It made for a very long night, because it seemed like it was always at night sitting there waiting. Sweet. Yeah, they've added a little scenery out here. Like if you look at it in real life, especially if you go back in Google Earth to the early 2000s, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot out here, really. I said you're skirting around the outskirts of oof, we're going really fast too. Oh, it's 25. Okay, good. Train read my mind, right? It knew. Spur wasn't paying attention, but the train knew. It's like, we gotta go, bro. We gotta get out of here. So yeah, you're kind of you're the outskirts of Orlando. Pretty cool area. We got our OUCX cars here. Let's come over here and do a little rail fanning while we can. There's not a lot of places where you can do this and not mess something up, right? That's pretty cool. She looks really nice, right? There you go. There's our OUCX rapid discharge hoppers there. All right, let's hop back in. A little more speed here. I don't know how long this branch is. It's at least, it's a few miles. It's a little ways. I want to say a local can come out here too. One of the locals out of Taft. Maybe there's some industries on it. I'll be honest, I'm one of the people, I hardly come out here either. Like, it's not a lot. There's not much going on, right? You don't have anyone to meet. You're just kind of rolling along, enjoying the railroad. In reality, remote railroading could be kind of fun, right? Because there's no one around to mess with you. No one was around to mess with you, so it was kind of nice to be out like on a remote job and not be bothered. You're just kind of like in your own little world, right? Let's fly ahead here. Let's see what we got up here. Yeah, we got a little ways to go. We sure do. We got a little ways to go. So I'm trying to think of anything else about our coal train dumping. Anything else that would apply. Like I said, DTC isn't around anymore, so you make the choice when you run your railroad if you want to do DTC or track warrants. I don't know much of anything about track warrants. I took them a little bit on the NS. But it was very set, like routine, the same thing every time, right? Like things didn't change a lot. I prefer, like from what I know of track warrant control, honestly, I prefer DTC. Because they were consistent. They never changed. I think with track warrant control, your limits can change up, you know, change around and stuff like that. So I just like the consistency of the DTC blocks. DTC blocks are really cool. They, DTC basically replaced train orders, and the railroad that actually invented, if I remember correctly, the railroad that came up with DTC blocks was the SP, the Southern Pacific, back in the day, way back in the day. And the Seaboard Coastline adopted that practice too. You know, there was a time way back in the day where they kind of flirted with a merger between the SP and the SEL. I don't think a lot of people know that, but like maybe in the 70s is when that happened. It was definitely before the Santa Fe SP merger, but I want to say that the Santa Fe SP merger, like they tried going after that because the Coastline merger failed. I think they did a pivot, right? If I remember, I could be in left field on that, but maybe they did a pivot to the Santa Fe after they couldn't get the SEL for some reason. That merger wouldn't work. So I guess maybe late 70s is when they were kind of flirting with it, because I know the SP did some run-through trains from like New Orleans on the SP all the way out to there was one that went to Oakland. There was a hot Oakland pig that they did. I want to say it was like a Savannah to Oakland service or something like that with the SEL. It was some weird route like that. And of course, with DTC, like I had very limited experience with it. There was only a few situations where we did DTC on the coal train. And we had a yard job that we worked that had to get a DTC block. If we went to a certain industry on the main line, we have to get a DTC block. Is that on the A&WP sub? And that was a DTC route. It was ABS DTC. But yeah, my experience with DTC is really limited. But I always thought it'd be cool to have a multiplayer session with a signal suspension, like on the A line, and do DTC blocks, right? Like you could do DTC blocks between, let's say, St. John's and Taft or something like that, you know. Few crossings out here. Someone left a comment about the blowing the horn, the crossing signals, as far as blowing the horn, long, short, long, right? And they were asking if that was standard. I think I'm kind of behind on comments. I need to go through them, but I think they asked if that was a standard. Yes, that is the standard. Long, short, long. That is like every railroad across the board in the United States and probably Canada too. That's how you're going to blow the horn, right? Like if I can think of it, we'll look at a whistle post when we get up to it. There's going to be one up here. Let's go take a peek at it. Now, not all whistle posts are created equal. This is an ACL style whistle post. In fact, this isn't 100% legit. They wouldn't have these whistle posts on this branch because this branch was built in the 80s. And these whistle posts were done for the Atlantic coastline way back in the day. They're made out of concrete, but you can see it's got the fat black stripe. You know, it's got two of them, and the skinny one, and then the other one there, that's long, short, long. Sometimes, most common, you would see like a W. I think the southern and the central Georgia had something similar to that as well too, as far as the stripes. All right, we'll keep on keeping here. See if we can start a train back there. Nope. Relatively flat here. Not much going on as far as grade. I want to say Stanton, this power plant went online in the mid 80s, maybe. Something like that. That was basically the same time that our power plant, they did the branch for it. Back in the mid 80s. I think it was right before CSXs. Actually, it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal they built that branch. It was a long branch and it's kind of through some rugged terrain, stuff like that. The thing about this train, just a lot of throttle modulation. We're running with both engines online. That's another thing we need to touch on. Sorry, my throat is so scratchy this morning. Fuel conservation is a big deal nowadays. I think they probably absolutely tell you to isolate the bottom engine, right? Have it dead in tow or whatever. Back in the day, early 2000s, they didn't care. We ran with both online. It was awesome. It was awesome to have an empty coal train with two units online. They were good jobs. This is a good train. Now they're all picky about fuel. It's nice how they got the standing water back there. Yeah, I think they've absolutely come down here and added some scenery. I don't know what point they did it, but I think they definitely have. It's like it's going to be between 2 and 3 the whole way. Someone had left a comment. Said that they're ex-railroader as well too, and they were going to do some multiplayer. I'd love to do some multiplayer. I've kind of been working on it like an old school early 2000s world in session. I'd like to do. It's just a matter of having an evening free when I can do that. Like evenings are really super limited for me. But yeah, it'd be cool. Really, the first multiplayer sessions that I want to do, I would love to do a Waycross multiplayer session where we get several guys in there and man the yard. Just have like multiple trim jobs, a hump drop job, hostlers, any other jobs that we might need. Maybe have an extra board that is just takes the trains in and out of the yard for little ways. Like they don't make a really long run, right? Like they just take them out a few miles and then bring another one in, that sort of just basically moving the freight, like moving as much as we can in and out of the yard and like working the jobs. I think that would be really cool. Have bowl tower, A tower, you know, that sort of thing. I think that would be really cool. Everyone kind of like working together to move as many cars as we can. You know, back in the day, Waycross could help about 3,000 cars a day. I want to say their max maybe in like 3,400 or 35, something like that, but it'd be cool to take that number and divide it by the hours and then figure out how many cars per hour and see if you could hit that in a session, right? Like see if you hit it. I think you could. I think you absolutely could. Things move a lot faster in game than they do in real life, right? In real life, it takes a lot more time to get things in motion and working on the railroad than it does in the game. So I think we could probably hit that pretty easy. Whatever the hourly number is, right? Like I'm not saying hump 3,000 cars in 24 hours, but yeah, it's very flat through here. There's not much at all going on as far as grade. Nice, they added some subdivisions down here with the new houses, so they've absolutely added scenery down here. Yeah, they've absolutely added scenery down here. That's really cool. I like to see that. A little bit of an upgrade. That's cool. Looks like some kind of construction company out here. So I saw that flashing light. I couldn't figure out what that was for a second. Anyway, I hope this gives you guys that aren't familiar with DTC a little bit of an idea of what it was like. It was really cool. It wasn't bad. Wasn't bad doing that at all. Kill these wipers, we don't need those anymore. The rain's done let up on us a little bit. This is a cool bridge. I like the these precast panels that they did or whatever that you see. You see those a lot here in Texas, at least where I live. You see those things on the bridges. Yeah, that's a nice detail. I like that. And the guardrails and stuff, man, they did a lot of work. I guarantee that was probably a little complex to set up. That was probably a little work to do this, but it looks really nice. So yeah, it's pretty lazy railroading. We wouldn't even need to give him these blocks back as we go. We just give them all back to him at once. Like sometimes the dispatcher would want them back all at once. In fact, I think this is our block limits. No, that's just for the bridge. Never mind. On the main line, sometimes the dispatcher may want you to give them back as you go, so he can maybe give them to another train that's following you. So that sort of thing. And there's so much more to DTC than just like what we're doing too. Like when you get out on the main line, it's definitely more complex. Because at that point you've got meets. And with meets you have after arrivals and you know, all that sort of thing. All right, well, we got to be getting fairly close. Yeah, we got to be getting fairly close. There's no milepost out here, so it's kind of hard to know where you're at exactly. But like I say, when you're only training on the line, it doesn't really matter. Keep expecting our next block to come up. Like we're in the Stanton block, the orange block should be coming up. Or maybe it's reversed. Maybe we're in the orange and it's the Stanton. I can't remember. I was gonna get my timetable here. I finally found my my old 2003 Jacksonville that I was issued. I was gonna look at it and see. Here goes Sanford. Effort sub. Okay, it's all right. We're on the orange right now. The stand is between the A799.8 north leg of the Y to the AOK 2.8, and then the orange is AOK 2.8 to the AOK 17. So it's about a 17-mile bridge. Yeah, it's a little ways. I was gonna see if it had any any details about the Stanton. It tells about Boswick. Boswick is not a DTC block. You just go in. You just go in and do it like it's theirs from the switch in. Usually it gives you instructions for the for like hooking up the dump lines and stuff like that before. Like usually at a certain point you will hook up, like on our coal trains the dump lines are already hooked up and charged. I don't see anything about it. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, I'm just missing it. Interchange at Taft. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I'll have to research that a little more. Sanford, there's a Stanton Spur OUC coal plant. Yeah, I don't know. I have to look through that a little more. But yeah, usually they'll have special instructions. They'll say, at this point, hook up the dump line and charge it, that sort of thing. Like I said, it was always done for us. It was done when it left the yard because it wasn't very far to the power plant. Like on this train, they definitely don't want you running from Bevins Branch all the way down to Taft with the dump line charge, because you could very well activate that thing on the way down there somehow and dump your coal, you know, like on a line of road. So you don't want to do that. Because like when you charge that dump line, it's like it's loaded and ready. It's ready to go, right? Yeah, I was trying to find those block limit signs. They got to be getting close. In fact, I think I remember like hearing empty trains on the radio having to stop because their dump doors were open, like something happened and the dump doors were open. Empty, not nearly as big of a deal, but I mean, they could still catch on something, right? Maybe a road crossing or whatever. I guess there would be a potential for them hanging up on something. Those things were always a pain. Like, they sound amazing, right? Like these rapid discharge automatic hoppers and stuff, but it's like I was saying earlier, they never, like, things never worked right on that. Either something was tore up at the power plant or something wouldn't dump right. And I remember like having a hell of a time during the winter time because they washed the coal. And so it had moisture in it. And the weird thing about the coal was, at least the coal that we took into our power plant, it wasn't lump coal. It was like dirt, if that makes sense, right? It was literally like a dirt that you would be hauling really fine, and it got all in your boots and all over the place. But it had moisture in it, and so during the winter time, if it got cold enough and stayed cold for a while, it would freeze. And so what would happen is you would take your train over the dump trestle, and the dump actuators would energize and the doors would pop open and nothing would happen. This happened to me one night. We recruited at milepost 6, and we went down in there to dump, and I'm saying, like, the conductor would have to stand in the dump building, right, and talk to the engineer. And the dump doors open on the first few cars and nothing came out. It was like a solid chunk. It's hard to believe like that much coal would be like a solid chunk, right? But nothing came out. And so they had me stop the train. It's just me and the dump guy, right? There's no one else. And he's like, let's see if we can kind of jostle it a little bit to get it to loosen up and come out. And so the engineer kind of bumped it. He got pretty rough with it. I'm honestly kind of surprised we didn't get a knuckle, because he got pretty rough with it trying to get this coal, and it would not come out. Like, it's mind-blowing. Out of those first like 4 cars that we energized and the doors open, nothing came out. It's like they were empty. So anyway, the dump guy was like, okay. So he got on the phone and he called the power plant. He's like, I need some people up here and some sledgehammers. And next thing I know, about 10 men and women came up there, all sledgehammers in hand and coveralls, right? And We went out on the dump trestle beside the cars, and they started wailing on those cars with sledgehammers. Like, it didn't have a shaker or anything like that. I don't even know if you could put a shaker on those things, to be honest, but yeah, they just started beating the hell out of those cars. And finally the coal would start to break free, and then finally it would kind of start trickling, and then it would let go and dump. Then they go to the next car, right? All of them beating on these cars, you know. Like, it was such a nightmare. They beat on the cars, and then finally it would dump. Then we pull the next few on there and energize those, and they start beating on those cars. Like, it was like, you know, a few per car, you know. And I want to say it took us 3 different crews to dump that train. You're talking like 36 hours. It probably wasn't that long like the dump total. That's probably transit and going back, but 3 crews. But I would be willing to bet it probably took a good 10 hours to dump that train. I bet the NS was pissed because we were blocking, like we were hanging out over their main line, so they couldn't do nothing. But yeah, I never forget that. All those men and women having to come out there and beat on that train with sledgehammers to get the coal to come out. That's the kind of stuff you ran into, right? That's the kind of stuff you ran into. Or like I said, their auger would tear up, or their conveyor system would tear up, and they couldn't move the coal, right? And like, you can only dump so much in those pits before they would fill up and there would be no more room, right? Like, it'd start getting high. So, you know, it was always something. There was so much involved with that. I'd be lying if I told you that I enjoyed dumping the coal trains. They really kind of suck. I mean, as a regular assigned job, I guess that would be pretty cool, right? Like, it'd be a pretty sweet job. Because you have regular day, like you have days off and stuff like that, but they know what you're doing every time. But as an extra board crew, it sucked. We'd have to deadhead. We had like a several hour deadhead to it. So yeah, it wasn't fun. It kind of sucked. And like I said, the coal got everywhere. It was like all over your clothes and your boots and just everywhere. All right, it says next signal at 5.3 miles. Man, it takes you a while to go down this branch. This is just going to be like a whole video in itself, right? It's just going down this branch. It's easy railroading though. All you gotta do is just modulate this throttle. You don't really have to do anything else. I don't think I've ever taken a loaded one in here. Yeah, I don't think I have. So yeah, if it's 17-mile branch and it's 25-mile-an-hour railroad, so that adds up about right. We've been in it 44 minutes. Yeah, I didn't realize it was nearly that long. I think the power plant we dumped at was gas now. I know a lot of them are going to natural gas. Several have been torn down in Florida. Power Park, Jacksonville, huge power plant. They're over by Cedar Bay and Blunt Island, tore down, like completely gone, like it was never there. The loop is still there, but the power plant is gone, which is just kind of mind-boggling to me, like how big of a place that was and just like gone. What else? I want to say the one at Lakeland was tore down too, right? McIntosh, wasn't it McIntosh down there at Lakeland? That was another big customer. Coal trains going down into Florida. You know, we talked a few videos back about all the coal that moved down into Florida. Lakeland, I want to say that one's gone. Indian River outside of Miami, I want to say that one's gone. That was another one, Indian River trains. Man, there was so much coal that moved down into Florida down into Florida, the 80s and 90s and 2000s, you know, I said you had Boswick, you had Stanton, you had Power Park, there was Cedar Bay in Jacksonville too, but I think that one got it by ship. Maybe. I know they have rail line in there, but you know, sometimes it can kind of change back and forth, right? You had Tico in Tampa, you had Deer Haven at Gainesville, you had Lakeland at Lakeland, you had McIntosh at Lakeland, you had Indian River down outside of Miami, Crystal River, the king of them all, north of Tampa, on the west coast of Florida. They had the nuclear plant there, and man, they ran a ton of coal trains into that place. Like for a long time, the ELFX trains that ran down there. Crystal River, that'd be a good one. We need some ELFX cars because those were big, running up and down the railroad. Those would go, those could either go on the Atlanta side or the Savannah side, and then they'd go down to A-Line, and then they'd branch off at Callahan and go that way. But yeah, it's crazy how many of those coal-fired power plants are going, and like in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, they're gone. Like things change so fast when they decided to get rid of them. Like in Florida, they got rid of Power Park, they got rid of Lakeland, they got rid of Indian River. Like, where are they getting that power from now? Because those are completely gone, right? Like, I know Power Park is, I want to say Lakeland is gone. And I think those are like completely gone and torn down. So, like, what took up the slack for that power down there? I have zero clue. Like, solar farms? Was it the solar farm down there that just got eliminated by the tornado the other day? Like, I don't know. I saw pictures of some solar farm down there in Florida that just got completely tore apart by EF2 tornado. Like an EF2, you know, went through the middle, like right through the middle of it, and just cleared out a big path through the middle of this solar farm. There's no telling how many of the ones that are left standing that are probably damaged, you know, beyond working from all the debris. But yeah, how did they take up the slack for those power plants that were eliminated is my question. You know, I don't know. There we go. There's our DTC block sign. It's going to say end orange and begin Stanton. Look at it here as we go by. Begin Stanton, DTC block in orange. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much true to life. They'd had those block signs that you know where the limits were. So it says, this board says 2.6 to the next signal, 10 and 2.2, 15 and 1.5. So yeah, we're coming to the end. We're probably just going to go up to the signal and end it right there. We may do some more with the train. I'm not sure if you guys want to see more with it. Just let me know. I think it'd be cool to run a empty coal train up the A line. I think that would be fun. I would enjoy that. They're easy trains. They're super easy trains. Get ready for our 15 up here. We shouldn't have to do anything. 0.1% grade here. So it should slow itself down. Looks like it is. To make sure she does what she's supposed to. 1 mile out. Yeah, I think we're fine. Then 0.7 miles after that is going to be the 10. I think the 10 is the leg of the Y going around to the signal. Yeah, we're fine. So, you pick up your TC there at Stanton, coming out on the main. Traffic control there at that signal. Sometimes on a DTC line, they would have like an advance, like a distant signal to it to let you know what the positive signal was going to be, but not on this line. I was trying to remember if we had one on the Yellow Leaf branch. I don't remember one. I think we picked up the first signal just where we were getting on the main at. We had a Y. It was almost exactly the same same setup. It was a Y to go because when they first did those coal trains, the coal came in from the south, so they would come down out of Corbin. They go to Atlanta, and then they go down to AWP to LaGrange, and then LaGrange, they get on the Limeville sub, and they come north. They had loads going north, and then they would go on the Yellow Leaf branch that way. At some point, they lost the contract on outside of Corbin, wherever they loaded it at. And they started loading them at Jim Walter mines outside of Birmingham, and so they started coming from the north. Well, at first they would have to go down and go to a siding and like run around their train and do all this stuff. So eventually they built another leg onto the Y from the north. So at that point it became like a full Y. Of course, having a Y out on the line of road was really nice, because you never knew. I'll give you an example. I had a pig one day. It was a nice daytime trip. It was a 179. We had two ex-Conrail SD70 MACs in the lead. One was CSX Yellow Nose 2, and the other one was just straight up Conrail. And we get outside of the terminal, and our horn on the lead unit just fails. It literally failed. You can hit the button all you want, and it wouldn't do anything. An engineer could hit it on his side. Conductor had one on their side too. Probably has one on here as well. Can't see it over there, but so we're both hitting the horn, and nothing is happening. Like, it completely failed. So we had to stop our train. And we stopped at this Y and cut our engines off and turned them on the Y, and put a leader in the lead that had a working horn, which was good. And then we went down the railroad a little bit further, and the train ahead of us derailed, believe it or not. Like that's the kind of trips you have on the railroad. Those of you that have done it know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like, our train, the horn fails, we get that resolved, get a little ways down the railroad, and the train ahead of us derails. Like, we're going the same direction, right? We're both going the same direction, and he derailed. And we didn't know it at the time. So what happened is his air went down, and he walked the train. The conductor walked the train, but all our bridges didn't have walkways. So he walked as far back as he could till he got to a bridge that didn't have a walkway. And he's like, I can't get to the bottom, and I haven't found anything. So the dispatcher called us, and he's like, I'm gonna clear you into that block. Go up this, you know, go up until you see his bottom, and then walk from the bottom up. And so I did. I walked from the bottom up, and probably about 10 cars from the bottom was an empty tank car that I guess the slack like ran in really hard on them for some reason, and it just lifted it up off the tracks and kind of put it across the tracks just a little bit at an angle, right? Like both trucks were off. So I found the car and I got on the radio and told him, I said, yeah, y'all are on the ground back here. And I gave him the car number, and then it was a whole thing, right? Like it was a whole big deal. They had to call Holcher out, and like it was a whole thing. I think they used Holcher sent a little crew out there to use re-railing frogs to put it back on the rails. So it worked out, right? But another great day on the railroad. All right, typical day. Typical day on the railroad. Never fails. All right, so this is that looks like that's the south leg of the Y. I thought there was some industries out here, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Our signal is 0.7 away. So we'll just ease around up here. Dispatcher may not be ready for us, you know. He may not be ready for us. And maybe he's got to get someone by. And then he can give us a light to get out of here. Keep easing up there a little faster though. Our TID's just starting here in a bit. I think it starts right here at the leg of the Y. Yep, there it is. Right there. There's our 10 diamond board, and then our DTC block is where the signal's at. Like I said, he wouldn't ask for the block back behind us because there's no one to take it. We're it, so we can give it to him after we get off the railroad. They used to do something kind of similar at Waycross, coming out of the North Forwarding Yard and going up the pits. You have to cross over the Thomasville Main. As if it's different. They didn't issue it like a DTC block. You call a tower and you'd be like, okay, you got the Thomasville Main at 15:15. You know, give it back to me as soon as you can. And that was it. Like there was no absolute, no clear, no proceed, no occupy. Like he just gave you the Thomasville Main. You know, it wasn't like a true DTC block. A little different. All right, we should be getting pretty close up here. It's gonna be kind of a hard one to spot coming around this curve here. There's a nice view of our train. That's pretty cool. See, we got this road crossing. We may have to stop on this road crossing, to be honest, like, or stop just short of it so we won't block it. Hopefully we'll be able to see the signal. A little independent. Yeah, we'll go up here looking out. Hopefully we can dope that signal out so we won't have to block this crossing. Yeah, I just don't see it. We may have to block it. Yeah, let's go on up there. I don't think we're going to be able to see it. Yeah, I think those trees are going to obscure it. That figures. Had to get the brush crew out here. There's our other block limits. I think it's going to say TC, right? Or it says begin CTC. Sometimes you see TC, traffic control, or CTC. Ends the stand block. It would be the exact opposite. Begin stand block into CTC. Yeah, there's no way we're going to see that signal. We kind of peak it a little bit there. Just a little bit further. Come on. There we go. Nice. Looks like we get a medium out of here. So that'd be nice. We're ready to blast off and take a single north. If we do that, then it will get a good medium indication out of here. But we won't be able to take it because we're hanging out on a 10-mile-an-hour railroad. So it may as well be a slow, but it's going to give us a medium out of here. So we'll go ahead and stop this bad boy here. A little independent. It's flat as a pancake, so we don't really have to worry about the train doing anything. Let's give it full independent. That'll hold it here. All right, guys, that is going to do it for the Stanton branch and our DTC blocks. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'd always try to answer them, at least the best of my knowledge. It may not be 100% correct. It's been like 20-something years, so it's been a really stupid long time. It's hard to believe. Love all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you out there next time. Peace. No, big cat, no. Oh, no, kitty. Oh, that's a MiG. That's a MiG over us. Okay, it's the weirdest day ever. Oh, no, he just fell. He just fell.